Today, we are speaking to Luc Durand, president of IPSOS Quebec, the largest research company in Canada, and now the third largest in the world. Luc is an expert on the highly coveted and largely misunderstood millennial cohort. Join us as we discuss engaging with millennials. So, welcome Luc, and welcome to Cup of Joe.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
With IPSOS, you have this really interesting seat where you're constantly looking at this millennial cohort, this up-and-coming massive generation of people with money to spend. What have been your biggest thoughts on millennials and where millennials are going forward?
Well, it's a very interesting cohort. First, it's a big cohort. It's one of the biggest one we've seen recently, and it's just going to increase, especially with young immigrants coming to Canada. And they are very vocal about what they want. And, you know, being in the period of time that they had the social media to verbalize literally all these expectations that they have. Unlike the Generation X, who kind of just went under the radar. The millennials have very high expectation, and they do have the tribune to manifest it. So that allows them to really create important trends in society and as consumers. And it's a bit like the baby boomers, but on steroids, because they have the means that were not available at the time to communicate all that. So yes, and we've seen it already. Some of the subgroups of the millennials, like the Yimmies, the young educated millennial mothers, are defining the major trends in food right now. So it is a group that is very powerful from a marketing perspective, from a consumption perspective, and for a trend defining perception, and eventually, of course, for buying power.
That's interesting. So what are some of the biggest truths about millennials that people don't understand?
Well, I think the number one truth, which is often the case in the social demographic group, it's not an homogeneous group. The older millennials are slowly getting into the workforce, being in couple, starting to have children. So their behavior is a little bit more like the Generation X, as the younger millennials are most of the time living at their parents, so their needs and expectations are different. So I think that one of the big truths is that it's not an homogeneous group.
It's interesting because you talk about them growing up with technology and always being sort of hooked to their technology. What has technology done for millennials?
I think technology is kind of being a good and bad for them. It allows them to communicate. At the same time, they are a little bit too much connected, so they miss the present moment, and their identity is quite important to them. So it's like almost like they were always on stage, you know. At the same time, they are, as you just said, some very savvy consumer. They shop in the brick and mortar store, but they also shop online, and they go from one to the other, sometimes in the same process. So yes, technology has an immense influence in their lives, in the way that they interact with people and in the way that they shop and they consume product.
As an advertiser, when you're dealing with the world of push and pull and trying to get your message out to millennials, who's doing it well, and how should they be doing it?
Some brands that I've seen recently, and it's not exclusive, but these are the ones at the top of my head, Fido is doing a good job in Canada, and we see that they're doing quite a good job in reaching them and seducing them. IKEA worldwide is doing a fantastic job with them, I must admit. You know, the way that they communicate with them is well adapted. I guess the channels are good too, because they're reaching them, and they feel that they're using the right language to communicate with them. So I think these are two good examples.
Obviously, brands are looking to connect with millennials, and they're trying to figure out their way into letting them pull information into their networks. What's one cool sort of fact that people are missing about millennials?
It's important to that they feel unique when you communicate to them, but that you can gather them around something that they will feel part of what's important that's happening in the world.
So is purpose more important to them then?
I couldn't say that. They're still very attached to the image, honestly.
So curating your image, having your image out there the right way, which is why there's so many posts on Instagram, is really part of their lifestyle now. I mean, they're hooked into that world.
And they themselves admit that it's taking too big of a part in their life, in fact.
How can brands leverage social media today to connect with millennials when they're living it, eating it, and breathing it?
It's being present, being honest, and being beautiful at the same time. Because at the end of the day, they will know what you're doing, and their peers are going to tell them how you perform. but you still need to be very appealing to them and very trendy and being the talk of the town. So it's a mix of both.
What is the one thing that brands can do to transform the way they engage with people?
I think that they have to really understand what are the emotional motivations behind the reason why people are going to consume their product. Yes, there is a very tangible need that their product will serve to answer, but they also need to see exactly what is the emotional benefit that people are searching while they're consuming their product. Is there a need for recognition? Is there a need to be part of something? So when they would understand that would help them a lot in their communication.
So Luc, I got to thank you for having this caffeinated conversation with us, and thank you for going on this journey. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.